I want to remind you to gather the supplies for the ritual. You received an email about that. So you'll want to have something to make a threshold, either a piece of tape or a piece of yarn, something like that on the floor. 4 pieces of white paper or white cards that have your roles written on them. Could be career roles or family roles. A candle, if you would like to make a sacred space, and a symbolic object of your roles. Could be family role, career role. So I just wanted to remind you while we have a minute. And I want to thank everybody again who's been participating in the discussions on the platform. It's been really meaningful to me to see your insights and your comments and your questions. It's just been great.
Connie, I have a question for you. Will all of the videos that are up there, will they be up there for a while?
I don't know who's speaking. I can't.
Yes, this is Betty Krause.
Oh, okay.
Yes, will
Betty,
the
I don't know
videos?
that. I don't know that. Is Gilleray on the call here? Gilleray, who's been hosting us? Oh, I just saw her name.
Yes, what's the question?
Well, the
The
videos
question
for me,
was, will the videos that we've been watching over this period of time be up for any period of time?
There's about 6 months I'm not sure exactly when the date is. I'll post it on the course homepage. You do
Okay,
have access to the course for a little bit longer after, but not forever.
okay, but for like a month or two at least.
I believe so.
Okay, great, great, thanks.
so if you want to say something, if you would use your electronic hand raise, and that brings you to the top of my screen. Otherwise, it's a disembodied voice. So today I'm gonna do a short presentation for our closing and our ritual, and then we'll have lots of time for our final conversation together. Okay, so before I start, I'm just gonna remind people once again, if you want to participate in the ritual, you need to gather something to make a threshold on your floor. It could be a piece of yarn, a piece of tape, even a piece of thread or a thin piece of paper, a candle, 4 white pieces of paper or white cards with your various roles and careers written, one on each one, and some kind of symbolic object of your past roles in your family or your career. Okay? So I'm going to share my screen now. Oh, Gilleray, it's disabled. I need to share my screen. Thank you. Okay. Can everybody see that? Would one person just let me know?
Yes.
Okay. Oops. So welcome everyone to the closing of our program, Aging as Spiritual Practice. Today is about the overarching vision of becoming an elder, a noble archetype that's not acknowledged in our culture because of widespread ageism and a lack of rites of passage and a failure to value the developmental and the spiritual worth of this new longevity and its purpose as well. And so that's why I wrote The Inner Work of Age. It's created as a rite of passage that walks you through the ideas and the practices you need to move from senior to elder, to cross the threshold from unconscious aging to conscious aging, and to embrace the spiritual gifts of this stage of life with shadow work. So if you miss something in any of our classes together, don't be concerned. The themes presented by the other teachers, like dreams and grief, illness, caregiving, forgiveness, mortality, spiritual healing, they're all in the book. So with guidance, we all have the opportunity to radically reimagine age for ourselves. And as we learn depth psychological and spiritual practices that address the late life identity crisis, we orient to our inner work. We deepen our self-knowledge and reimagine age, eventually shifting from denial to awareness, from self-rejection to self-acceptance, from obligation to flow, from holding on to letting go, and from distraction to presence. And finally, what I call from role to soul, an internal shift in identity, from doing to being, from what we do to who we really are. And we can learn to break our unconscious identification with our roles, productivity, success, and image, and more deeply identify with our spiritual essence, whatever name you give to that. This is the deeper dimension of age, the universal inner journey of human individuation that includes the unfolding of our authenticity and authority, and even the unfolding of advanced stages of human development that are described in every religious tradition as the purpose of late life. So elder is a stage, not an age. It's a qualitative transition like water to ice. And that means that a 55-year-old who serves her soul's mission with self-awareness and gravitas may be an elder, while an 85-year-old who's closed-minded and bitter and believes he's a victim and deserves revenge is not an elder. And that's what I mean by an internal state of mind or stage of awareness. But unless we live in an indigenous community, we don't have a rite of passage to make this transition. And so I imagine that the book would serve this purpose. There are 3 steps to any rite: letting go, releasing outworn roles and identities, facing the unknown or liminal space, and shifting our identity from senior to elder or role to soul. This is a quote from Jung that I used in the beginning of the course. The afternoon of life is just as full of meaning as the morning. Only its meaning and purpose are different. Whoever carries over into the afternoon the law of the morning must pay for it with damage to the soul. So what blocks this shift that we've been exploring? Let's recall the unconscious shadow characters or inner obstacles to recognizing the call and crossing the threshold. You can see here that each shadow or inner obstacle leads to a developmental task. Denial of age can lead to releasing the inner ageist. And some of you wrote about your experience of that in the discussions. Identification with doing and achievement and success can lead to releasing identification with the doer. Unhealed trauma and regret about the past can lead to completing unfinished emotional business. And this can lead to healing and giving and receiving forgiveness. Unfinished spiritual business can lead to a renewed relationship with spirit or higher self, and a practice that connects us to something beyond ego. Denial of death can lead to facing mortality and practicing what I call mortality awareness. Moving toward life completion can lead to finding purpose, contributing to the common good, and creating a legacy with the time that remains. So what is a completed life? Is it based on a feeling of gratitude, happiness, forgiveness? Is it based on a belief in redemption, salvation, reincarnation? Is it based on the achievement of an external goal or an internal attainment of a spiritual awareness? If our development is blocked by the inner obstacles and we're unable to move through denial and do the inner work of age, then we can't really consciously do the work of life completion. So I want to leave you with a few questions. What is your image of the promised land? How has it acted as a lure, a guide, a fear, a detour? Like Moses, who wandered in the wilderness for 40 years, but was forbidden from entering the promised land, we may not attain our dreams or reach our ideals. Today, we may not live in peace with increasing human rights and freedoms, food and housing for everyone. So how do we honor our own gifts and move toward trusting that they will no longer be needed by the whole? Perhaps life completion arises out of the knowledge that we have transmitted all that we've learned and prepared the next generation to carry on our tasks. Moses did this. He had Joshua and a new generation of leaders to venture forth, as we have our young climate warriors, our young gun control advocates, our young anti-war protesters. I recently met a 26-year-old author of a book about the shadow, and she's now my mentee. I'm giving her everything I know about shadow work, and she'll carry on my work. What can you leave behind to your children and grandchildren, to all children and grandchildren? When you read the epilogue of my book, A Letter to the Grandchildren, I suggest that you write your own or videotape it for your family, leaving behind all that you distilled from your one precious life, the key people and events that unfolded, the values and priorities that move forward as you aged, the narrow beliefs that you released, the renewed purpose that you found, the spiritual practices you discovered to bring you peace of mind. Take the time and the care to plant the seeds of the future, even if you won't be there when they sprout. Here's a precious teaching about legacy from the Jewish Talmud that helps me when I feel overwhelmed by injustice. Do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. You're not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it. So as we complete this course, a 10-part rite of passage, we can be freed from internal obstacles and allow change, which is inevitable, to change us, which is not inevitable. Like the inner child, we all have an inner elder that carries our intuitive wisdom, ethical guidance, and spiritual connection to a transpersonal source. Carl Jung called it the 2 million-year-old man or wise woman archetype. The shift in identity from hero to elder or role to soul moves our attention and our self-worth from the active roles we fulfilled to something deeper, a spiritual essence that has inherent value and doesn't depend on our productivity. When we begin to identify with that, we begin to become who we really are. This is aging as spiritual practice. So now we're going to do a ritual together, each of you in your own space. Gather the things that I asked you to bring and follow along with me step by step. First, create a threshold with a piece of tape or yarn or even a piece of paper on the floor. You can lower the lights or light a candle. And then lift each of your 4 white cards or pieces of paper one at a time, with your roles or careers written on them. For me, I had 4 careers: meditation teacher, journalist, book editor, and therapist. So list yours. And then lift a symbolic object that represents one or all of them. I lifted the books that have been my gifts to the world. Now imagine for a moment who might have been influenced by your work, including all the known influences and the unknown influences. And acknowledge yourself for these contributions and really feel the value of those years spent working. Please hold up these symbols of your work roles and responsibilities or your family roles and offer them to the world as you say out loud, I bless and release you to find your way now. And letting them go, set them down. Stand for a moment before the threshold on the floor. Take a deep breath. And then step over the threshold, empty-handed, into open space. Take a deep breath and look around. You're releasing the past. You're releasing the future. You're practicing presence, just here, aging breath by breath, intending to live as a soul. We're the ones to pass the torch now. We're the ones who are blessed and who will bless others. We can use our new limits to lead us within, away from distractions. We can allow our natural slowing to open out into an altered sense of time, breath by breath. We can allow our emotional losses to lead us to deeper connection, away from a sense of separation. We can allow our decline to lead us to let go of our personal stories and narrow beliefs, to connect with something larger, breath by breath. Age is our curriculum. If you're standing, please be seated. So there are many ways for us to stay in touch with each other. I just wanted to offer you a few. For those who want to continue to explore their inner world through depth psychology and shadow work, these are my first two books about the shadow. Meeting the Shadow is an anthology with many people you will have heard of. It will be coming out with a new cover. So in the next few months, it's going to look different if you look for it on Amazon. And Romancing the Shadow, this is a new cover. It's not yet available on Amazon, but this is what it's going to look like. It has a new foreword and a new preface. And so it's a new edition that's coming. And if you want to continue to stay in contact with me, readers of the Inner Work of Age are organizing online wisdom circles to do the Inner Work of Age in community and support each other as elders. These are free. They're leaderless online groups. There are hundreds of them in every country now. And the way to connect with that is to send me an email. You can see my email here, conniezweig@gmail.com. Please put Wisdom Circle in the subject line. Please give me your time zone, because I'll connect you with other people in your time zone. And please don't send me a long email. That's basically what I need to put you together with others. There are also book study groups. Meeting the Shadow on the Spiritual Path, the other book you see here. And this is about spiritual shadow work for people who've experienced religious trauma, spiritual disillusionment, or abuse in spiritual communities. And those groups are also free. They're online, they're leaderless, and I need your time zone. So if that's of interest to you, you can put spiritual shadow work in the subject line and send me your time zone. There are actually lots of them forming right now. I also started a new blog with live stream conversations and videos and new writing on Substack with my mentee, who I just mentioned. And it's called Shadow Work Awareness. So if Shadow Work to Expand Awareness. So if you Google shadowworkawareness.com, or I guess probably Shadow Work to Expand Awareness, you can find us. And if you want to, you can check us out there. There'll be lots of new videos, and that's kind of my newest project. If spirituality is your interest, I do a podcast with my husband, who's in an advanced stage of spiritual awakening. And it's broadcasting on Apple and Spotify and all the podcast platforms. It's called Dr. Neil's Spiritual Awakening to Non-Duality. So you can search for that, or you can send me an email with podcast in the subject line, and I'll put you on my mailing list so that you know each time a new episode comes up. We post them twice a month. So a deep bow of gratitude to you for becoming an elder in this crazy, turbulent, pivotal moment we're in. when your life wisdom is so needed for future generations. So let me close with a blessing for old age by John O'Donohue, and then we have lots of time to talk. May the light of your soul mind you. May all of your worry and anxiousness about becoming old be transfigured. May you be given wisdom with the eye of your soul to see this time of harvesting. May you have the commitment to harvest your life and heal what has hurt you, and allow it to come closer to you and become one with you. May you have great dignity. May you have a sense of how free you are. And above all, may you be given the wonderful gift of meeting the eternal light and beauty that is within you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Look forward to chatting with you now. Thank you, Ilana. So you know how to press the reaction button at the bottom and raise your hand. I'd love to hear, for those of you who did the ritual, what that was like. And you can ask or comment about anything from the whole program. This is our time together. Hi, Ilana.
Thank you so much. You know, I do a ton of ritual, and I'm always amazed at how powerful it is, and it doesn't need to be complicated. I mean, that was just such a beautiful, simple ritual, but it was very touching. I felt very touched. I had a really hard time coming up with my 4 things. Which surprised me. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I meditated on it. I thought about it. And then when you said your 4 roles, because I was thinking, well, I'm not ready to give those up. You know, like I still do those. I'm still involved, but something about going ahead and putting them all down and then stepping over the threshold and being able to be in just the vastness and the emptiness of possibility was really very powerful. So thank you so much for that.
Oh, that's lovely.
It was great.
Yeah. So it's not about not doing. I mean, look at me, right? I look like a big doer, but it's about the internal experience of the doing that shifted.
Yes.
It's about our attachment to the outcome. It's about the striving. It's about the money. It's about the image, right? It's about releasing all of that.
Yeah.
And so I want to continue to teach, but I'm teaching with a different quality of awareness now as an elder. So
Yes.
I'm so glad that you were able to step into that emptiness, and maybe it will allow you to do differently. It's not about becoming a couch potato, right? It's really, and there's often, that's often misunderstood. I'm not talking about giving up creativity or activism or whatever it is for you. I'm not suggesting that. I'm suggesting that we can have a different internal experience of our doing.
Right. It also feels like a release of I wasn't even aware of the identity attached to it.
Yeah.
So, you know, in putting down teacher, so to speak, that doesn't mean that I still don't offer whatever it is I've learned through my lifetime and people who come to me and ask for guidance, but it's that identity that I'm somebody, that
That's
the
right.
longer I live, the less I am.
That's right. That's right. And you got to be somebody to become nobody, as the old saying goes.
Yes,
Right.
exactly. So thank
So
you, Connie. It was a
Yes.
beautiful, beautiful class. I'm deeply grateful to you.
Me
Thank
too.
you.
So I want to respond to Eleanor's comment in the chat. I don't think this is just for white baby boomers. It's certainly not my intention.
I was responding to somebody's question. Somebody asked the question, what does that mean? Do you see in the chat? The first question was, what does that mean when we say, oh, wait a minute, the question went away.
Yeah, I don't see it.
Oh, there was a question there. Did anybody else see it? Liz says she saw it. I don't know whose question it was, but and somebody obviously has better technical skills than me, because I would not have known how to remove the question. But so somebody had a question there that said, what does that mean when we say our culture? And so I was responding to that question that, yes, saying our culture really, that assumes we
Okay.
are all of the same culture, which clearly we are not. So
Okay.
what
Okay.
similarities?
I can't see you. I don't know who's talking, and it's very loud. So let me just respond. So when
But
I
in part, the loud is my culture, because I come from New York. It's how we speak. So,
okay, thank you, Eleanor.
Yeah.
So my intention when I said our culture was, postmodern Western culture. And I did talk about that it's not indigenous culture. And you're right, there are many, many subcultures within this. Of course, there are. There are religious cultures, there are political cultures, there are ethnic cultures and tribal cultures within this larger culture. But the point that I want to make is that because we're all human, because we all necessarily have ego and shadow, that's how we're made, this kind of inner work is accessible to anyone, regardless of financial circumstance, regardless of race or ethnicity or religion or politics or anything, because it's how we are. It's not who we are, it's how we are, it's how we're built. So I have worked with people who have to continue to work at a financial necessity and can't retire when they would like to. And yet they can do inner work in a way that reorients them to their job or their career. So I'm just suggesting that that part of it is universal. Okay, Gail.
Thank you, Connie. That leads me right into what I wanted to report, the different relationship to work, even though I continue to work. Yesterday, I was asked to keynote a conference using what they wanted me to say rather than what was mine to say. And that they were trying to sell me on great hotel, we'll fly you there. I'm like, there was nothing in it that brought me alive. And what brought me alive was saying no. It's no longer mine to do. And if I can't show up with what I want to bring, it doesn't interest me. So this has really worked me over this time together.
Beautiful.
So thank you. And I also had a question about the ritual. So you had us just give one object over, release it. I thought we were to do something representing each of those 4 roles, so I wanted to get clarity on that.
You can do it that way too. I just didn't want to make it burdensome, like find 4 symbolic objects sounds like a lot.
I see. Okay, thank you.
So, in terms of your first point, I think I've been practicing saying no. I've been practicing because when I was, in my 40s and really kind of promoting my books and all that, I wanted to say yes to every opportunity, right? And there's this freedom now in being so much more discriminating in the way that you're describing, and so much more able to know my own gifts and what I have to offer and whether there's a fit. Like yesterday, somebody asked me to speak about masculine spirituality. I mean, why would I think that I could speak about masculine? I said, no, that's not a good fit. Here, try these people. So there's this sense of, I want to say no obligation, but that sounds too ideal. There's a sense of freedom from obligation and responsibility and more choice. It's not black and white, but it's in there. And I think the way you described it is what I'm experiencing too.
And the thing that came up was, I saw my tendency to, well, let's try to make it work. But I didn't in the moment, I slept on it. And what I think these days, if it's not a holy yes, it's a hell no. And it really helps me with the discernment.
That's great. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
Trish, hi.
Hi, Connie. First, I really want to thank you for this entire series. I kind of stumbled on it, and ironically, the way I did, I teach classes, just volunteer at Ollie at the Osher Lifelong Learning, and one of the participants, his name is David Hill, and he said he was in your Pacifica class or PhD program. I'm not sure, but he said to say hello. I don't know if you remember him, but I stumbled on it, and it's even though I'm still, my late 50s, I'm not an empty nester yet. I have one left at home who's a senior. But I am definitely transitioning, and I so wish that people in their 40s and 50s could do this, because what I feel like it's done for me, not only has it added a rich dimension of direction. Sorry, it's my dog. For my life. 2 dogs. But it has directed my future of what I want to do with my life. So I'm actually there, shut him out, sorry. I actually am going to hopefully try to do the Saging International, the certified Saging leader. And I'm
Beautiful.
finding that I'm implementing personally, and I also teach yoga. So throughout my teachings, wherever I go, this is becoming a part of what I say. It's like a message I want to get out there. Do you understand? So for
That's
people
good.
like me in middle age, and even younger, this message, I think, is not just for older people, because it's a preparation for me. And so I want to thank you so much for this opportunity to be here. It's meant a lot.
Thank you for so much contribution you made to the program, Trish. I had a 30-year-old young man email me that he read The Inner Work of Age, and I was kind of shocked. And he said it changed his orientation, his thinking, his feeling about growing older. So there is, in a way, I think, an application to people of all ages, but it's also at the same time very specific to later life, because certain things happen when we become more aware of our mortality, when we experience loss, when we are ready to do a life review, which, doesn't often happen in the 40s and 50s. So there's some things that I think need the ripeness. And there are other things that really apply in midlife. And maybe it's individual too. So thanks for that. Thanks for helping to spread the word. Saging International is a wonderful community. I did their 1-year program when I was first looking into this kind of work. And they have ongoing webinars that are really terrific. Saging.org. Okay, anybody else? Barbette, I think you've been trying to raise your hand.
I've been trying to find the hand. I found everything else, but I couldn't find the hand. I understand about saying no. I think that is so valuable. And I also want to add saying yes to different things. I got had an invitation to go to London last month, and I thought of all the reasons why I couldn't and didn't want to and was scared to, and essentially doing this trip pretty much by myself. And I went, and I had the best time. And I think sometimes now, I have to kind of push myself to do a little bit more of the fun things, the adventurous things. I think I need more. I would like to have more adventure in my life, and to say yes to adventure.
Lovely. It's a really good point. Thank you.
Mhm.
Anybody else? Hi, Janet.
Hi. I just wanted to comment on, I also saw this course on Facebook. It was a time where I was trying to process retiring, accompanying my mom in her end of life, having lots and lots of questions about, around aging and wanting to go into it kicking and screaming, no. And this has just been such a gift to me. I'm in an apprenticeship program to become a spiritual director. And, excuse me. Sorry. I wanted you to be able to hear me. The dogs went crazy. And part of the end of the program is to do a presentation to my fellow spiritual directors. And I'm choosing to talk to them about this very important soul companioning in the second half of life. And I just spoke with my supervisor today about it. And I just feel like you've helped me so much. And I hope I can just pass on some of that to these other spiritual directors so that they understand their own ageist and are able to meet people who are going through this transition in life in a way that is really helps them in the spiritual work that they want to be doing. So thank you so much.
Beautiful. I love that, Janet. Thank you. Thank you. Any questions? Anything that's like feels stuck or iffy or questionable to you, Liz?
Connie, I felt sad in watching the last video, conscious that it was the end of these weeks together. So I really felt very sad,
Yes.
but very grateful. But I think the question that I have is more to do with the pace of entering into another stage of my life, that just something, maybe I'd like to hear you on it. Like the things for me that when I was 70 was one thing, the death of my sibling sister was another stage. But I just feel now it's to have time to reflect on a very active life and to take time to appreciate, even in hindsight. I've done a whole series of photo books of the different stages of my life. So rather than destroying photographs and, work-related files, I kept what I wanted and then shredded everything else. So that's what I held as I was crossing over my blue robe. So I found that very helpful to me then in doing my life review. And even today, as I was thinking of it, I felt, oh my goodness, I left out this and I left out that and I left out the other thing. So I think it's something around the pacing. It's not sudden, my movement in my middle 70s. Does that make sense?
Yes, it isn't sudden and it can be sneaky, if we don't attend to it, and then it can hit people hard. Oh my God, I'm 80 years old or whatever it is, or I'm ill or so
the sadness.
Yeah, my husband asked me this morning before we started if I was sad. And, you know, this has been very meaningful for me too. And, you know, so I feel teary. I'm with you, Liz. I like closure. I like completing things, but at the same time, there's a loss in that. There's a loss in every closure, you know.
What
And
helped me was having your guidelines several days before today, in terms of having my cards and thinking of my symbol. And so I kind of felt that was good preparation. So it wasn't sudden. And I
yeah,
don't like rushing into things. But,
yes,
you know, endings bring sadness.
yes. And they also bring new beginnings.
Yes.
In some ways, this, I think, planted a lot of seeds. That's what I'm hearing from people.
Yeah.
And it's opened some doors for people and left you curious.
Yeah.
And maybe, I mean, more adventure, more inner work, more connection, more learning, right? So it's only an ending in terms of our program, but it's also a beginning of life as an elder. And that can mean all different kinds of things. You know, there's, for people who are interested in activism, there are a lot of elder groups now. Elders Action Network, Third Act, social justice groups like that, working on climate. There are intergenerational groups, Encore, which is now called Cogeneration, Coming of Age. There's so many groups that you can form community with. Saging is another one you can form community with. And explore new ideas and new kinds of inner work. But, you know, this course is ending now. I don't know if I'll be teaching at Pacifica again. You know, you can always find me on conniezweig.com and see what I'm up to. I'm hoping that you gained enough insight about shadow work to continue that for yourself. If that's of interest to you, if you're psychologically oriented, I'm hoping, because most of the other speakers didn't talk about that, you know, they're not trained that way. But I'm hoping you got enough of that it kind of sticks to the bone a little bit.
Oh,
And
yes.
also the spirituality.
Yes.
You know, that this stage of life is time to find a spiritual practice. And whatever that is for you, if it's Hindu or Sufi or Jewish or Christian, whatever, you can find a mystical thread in every religious tradition, and there's a rich treasure of practices there. And if you're not oriented that way, you know, you can find secular practices. There are so many of them now. I mean, mindfulness is not even Buddhist anymore. You know, you can find secular practices as well. So I'm hoping that you're left with those two orientations to inner work, and that doesn't end now.
Thank you.
So I'll be sad with you, and I'll also keep giving my gifts and doing my own inner work. And I hope that that's true for you as well. Betty?
Hi, Connie. Connie, it is just, you have been life-changing for me. From the time I found your book a year and a half ago, and I was preparing a retreat for women on aging, and I emailed you, and you emailed me back, and I'm like, oh, that was so meaningful. And I've since done four 3-day retreats on aging, the privilege and challenge of aging, using so much of your material. So it's just going out there, and they fill up the minute I offer them. So it is just a need. But
Beautiful.
seeing you, this has been such a gift to me because it's so obvious, I'm sure, to everybody here, the depth of your caring for the universe, for the people, for women's rights, for all of this, all of these things. And I can only tell you that with me, your message goes on, and hopefully where I can spread it. Uh, and I will tell you, this is nothing to do with that, but doing this ritual today, I wrote down the 4 things. So I wrote, retreat director and life coach and author. But I also wrote down, which was such a shock to me, homeowner, a role I wanted to leave. And when I stepped over that threshold and thought of the freedom of that, it just felt so refreshing to me. So I always say, be willing to be surprised. I just suit up and show up and do the work, and things come up that I just am so surprised at. So you've been just wonderful, and I will continue to follow you. That is for sure. So thank you so very much.
Thank you. I'm so glad you're taking this and teaching it and sharing it with others. It's just the best. Thank you. Anna Marie?
Yes, hello. I just wanted to thank you for offering this program, and I wanted to thank Pacifica. I was really having a really challenging time moving into the different transition of life, and I am so saddened that it is over, and I will miss your advice and your counsel, I should say. And it really has been a huge help in blazing ahead into the elder and ascending. I love that thought about that we're not descending, that we're actually ascending. And encountering my fears with the inner bag woman, that was just so helpful to have that deep-seated fear that, oh my, other people feel this way as well. And just hearing other people speak and being part of the journey together and not feeling so isolated. So thank you again for all the work.
Thank you. Oh my God, I don't know if I can talk. Thank you guys. I'm really, really glad that you were here with me and that it was meaningful to so many of you. In whatever form you can continue to share what was meaningful to others, to your grandkids, to your kids, write them letters, make them videos, and talk about these things. Or maybe you have the, good fortune to do it in person with your family or your students or your clients. It's a really big issue in therapy, and clients don't often bring it up. So that's another place in spiritual direction. Ed, let's hear from a guy.
Hi, Connie. Well, thank you very much, Connie. I mean, I signed up for this class as an academic endeavor, and I didn't know it was going to be a rite of passage of 10 weeks. And it's been that way for me. So, and you're just a great teacher. I was in the classroom for years and years, and I really appreciate your organization and your personal responses, especially when we do our posting. And I wanted to thank the folks that kind of shared things with me in the discussions that really made a real deeper connection to the class as I connected with the people. But I just want to say that my shadow wants me to do something as soon as this class is over. And I know that the best path for me is to continue to try to be a human being. And also, I've had a couple of no's come my way. I didn't say no, but I was said no to for some opportunities. And I need to look at those, and because that kicks my shadow up as well, the rejection, etc., all that stuff. And I know for a lot, I believe that for a lot of us, after the first Tuesday in November, it might be a huge no for some of us, or a huge yes, but it's going to be something that will kick off a lot of my internal shadow elements, and I want to be grounded and prepared for that. So sometimes just sitting and not doing just allows the next opportunity to come my way. There's a balance, because like at Richard Rohr's center, he balances action and contemplation. So it's just been really good, Connie, and thank you so much for all your interactions in, in the classroom, and also on your responses.
And thank you for your participation. Those discussions have been really moving. And I know everybody hasn't been on the platform, but you still can get on there and read them if you want to. I want to say one thing to what Ed just said. You said your shadow wants you to get up and do. So I want to make a distinction between the call of the self to do something and the shadow. So if you kind of just take a breath and sit with what part of me, whose voice is that that's asking me to get up and do something? Because we don't want to turn the sitting still and reflecting into a should either, right? So when we're in the kind of midlife heroic mode, the doing is a should, but we don't want to just reverse that. So who is it in you who's calling you to do now? Because it might be a higher calling, right? It might be a new, renewed purpose. And it might just be doing more of the same. So you got to check in, and I think that's true for all of us at this moment. And yes, the election and the state of the world is really tense and crazy making right now. And I feel like I'm going to hold my breath until November 6th. Jamie?
Hi, Connie. I just wanted to share how the class affected me. It was more about the inner ageist. And I know that's going back to some of the first learning, but when I let go, and I figure there might be a few others like me, I let go of youth, perfection, pleasing others, and being a daughter.
Beautiful.
And I'm just coming into my 70s. And I'm finding again that I was really bummed that I wasn't young anymore. But what this class has done has helped me understand that where I am at doing therapy and painting and gardening and walking in nature and realizing I'm a love being, I feel the call of self. And I can't thank you enough. I'm not feeling depressed anymore. I'm feeling empowered.
Ah, you're wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank
Very
you.
powerful.
It's beautiful. Okay, Deb, you're the last voice.
I just wanted to let you know how hard it was to put 4 things down on the cards, but how meaningful it was to me when I did. I put down, one of the things I put down is the boss. I'm a director level in my day job, and I've really been doing a lot of shadow work as a result of this class. And I was looking at, well, why is being a boss important to me? And it's about control. So one of my shadows is about being in control and not letting things get out of hand. And so with each one of those cards, I was able to identify what's the core issue. And I'm like, you know what? I've been really working these issues. And I mentioned that you would I didn't realize there was going to be like a ritual closing at the end of this. And I have actually invited my spiritual community to join me on November 1st. And we're having a full-on ceremony. And this is just like, I'm seeing these 4 cards that I divided out. There is one symbolic thing that I'm going to burn to ashes in there. And these cards are going to go with it. Because they're part of that symbol. So thank you for putting together the ritual. I think it's so important when we use ritual to touch that subconscious part of ourselves, and that's a huge difference. It's made a big difference in my life.
Oh, the boss. I know her well. Thank you for examining that and questioning it. And it doesn't mean that you step down from your role, right? It means that you do it consciously and relationally, right? So Gelleray is posting in the chat that there's an email class list. I didn't know that. If you want to stay in touch with each other, you can go to the D2L platform and find, it looks like the menu bars, email class list, and you can keep in touch with each other. That's fabulous. I didn't know that. Let me just see if there's anything else. Okay. I'm sending you all love and gratitude. I'm really taking in your appreciation and look forward to connecting with you in some other form. And grateful to you for the quality of your presence and your precious time. Okay, thank you all.